In working towards an egalitarian society, one of the aims we're working towards is that everybody has the opportunity to perform to their maximum potential. But how do we do that? How do we create work environments where people can perform at their maximum potential? How do we identify what our key talents are so that we know what our maximum potential can be? And how do we align the two? This is something Catherine Gray talks about in this interview.
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello and welcome to eSHAIR. Here we discuss, promote, and share the benefits to all from living in an egalitarian society, including for men. Inaccurate propaganda leads some men to believe that they miss out with equality. The reality is, suppressing women is detrimental for men. Creating a world where everyone can contribute equally makes everybody better off. Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome Catherine Gray to the show. Catherine is a specialist in CliftonStrengths, positive intelligence, and helping people find their calling. Her passion is helping people get aligned with their strengths and gifts. She's a big advocate of being holistic about mental, physical, and spiritual wellness and is launching a Fit for Purpose retreat in 2023. Welcome, Catherine.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you on the show. Do you want to travel back in time, jump into the Wayback Machine, and talk about some of the challenges that or talk about your background and some of the challenges that you overcome to lead to what you're doing now?
Okay, so I'm actually going to go way back
Feel
to
free.
when I was in when I was in primary school, which different people call school different bits of school different things, don't they? But when I was so like between the ages of 7 and 10, I kept getting ill, and no one really knew why. And it became apparent that I had got ME, so it was kind of a chronic fatigue style illness. And at the time, doctors, I don't know whether worldwide, but for sure in the UK, didn't think that kids could get ME.
Yeah.
And my dad had it, interestingly. So my mum had watched my dad and was basically watching me go through the same thing. So she was saying, she's clearly got it. What's going on?
Do you want to explain for the audience what ME is?
So it does have a proper scientific name that is then made into the initials ME, and I don't actually know how to say the word. Like, that was actually ridiculous. But it is a kind of chronic fatigue. Some people also experience a lot of pain. It was basically getting tonsillitis over and over again, and then the doctor just kept saying something viral. Nothing else is showing up in blood tests. You've got something viral. But I would feel like, if you kind of imagine the worst flu you've ever had and the most sleepless night you've ever had, I could sleep for like 14 or 16 hours, because this moved into kind of when I was a teenager. So imagine kind of standard teenage sleeping through the night and half the day.
Yes.
And I would wake up and feel like I'd not slept, and that my body was just working against me. And I had no reason, kind of rhyme or reason, why that was happening, and when I might have a better day or a worse day or anything like that.
Yeah.
So pretty much from when I was 10 to when I was 18, that was.
Wow.
And occasionally
a lot of time to be sleeping.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I didn't really sleep through the day because I was quite uncomfortable, or
yeah.
or I'd kind of It did actually. If I was doing all right, I could usually get downstairs to the sofa, but that would kind
Right.
of be it. That would be me
Yeah.
done in for the day.
Yeah, that's hard.
But I'd have to try and kind of be sociable if my mum had people round or my granny came to check on me or something, and I'd be like, okay, let's play a game. Because that's the other thing as well. It's very interesting actually. Post COVID, a lot of the
Mm,
research that's gone into long COVID
mm,
is very useful for fatigue. That's been had many other causes and names
yeah,
before. There just hasn't. No one's just kind of done that level of research before.
right.
Um, so although you're kind of wanting
Mm,
to do everything possible to feel better or to not get depressed, your brain can't actually cope with that level of interaction either because you're just exhausted.
yeah,
Um, so I had that throughout my teenage years. I kind of occasionally could go into school for a bit, but I'd last a few days and I'd be off a few weeks and then back a few
wow.
days, off a few weeks. Um, and amazingly, I got really good grades at the end. To the point where my teacher said, "You can't tell anyone about this because kids won't come on the trips and they won't turn up at school and they won't."
Yeah. I was going to
If
say, yeah,
they
you
know
need
that
to
you've
share
done
that
this.
secret. That's a book in itself.
Yeah, so the teachers were bringing me all my homework and I'd done incredibly well.
Yeah,
Um, and so then I managed to go on to college. And then I started applying for universities, and universities ask you a lot of information about who you are and what you like doing,
yeah.
what you think about various things. And I was thinking, gosh, I don't know who I am or what I like doing. I've just laid in bed for 8 years trying to feel like, what do people say on these things?
Yes.
Um, so at that point, I started doing kind of every personality or skills type assessment that I could find because I
Yeah.
thought, okay, let's figure out how to describe myself then
Yes.
because I don't have any lived experience.
Yes.
And what was interesting was a lot of those, most of the ones I was doing, I didn't feel described me, which I
Mm,
also found confusing because they seemed very well researched, very scientific in how they were being
yeah.
um, carried out. So I was like, well, I can't be a complete anomaly of the
Mm,
human race. They can't all be broken. Like maybe I just haven't found the one that sits well with me yet.
yeah.
And it was a few years after that, I think, that I did CliftonStrengths
Yes.
for myself.
Hmm.
And it literally just, I was reading it and going, oh my gosh, how do they know who I am? It's just bonkers.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So from that, so Clifton Strength was something that you actually started to study as well. So you read the book and then you actually studied it and made yourself a specialist in that. Was that was that from that reading the connection to it, or what gave you the drive to want to become a specialist in Clifton Strength?
So it was actually a lot more drawn out a process than
Yeah.
that. I'd kept my options open with what I
Yeah.
studied at uni because I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Mm,
After uni, I did a year traveling, and then I basically started doing kind of the introduction to counselling course, the introduction to play therapy course. I was like, oh, maybe I should have always done art therapy. I do like art and I like therapy. Like, why didn't I do that? And was just trying all these things
mm,
and was being told that I was quite good at them, but they weren't. I knew that I
yeah.
wasn't going to love doing that every day. And I also knew that if I came across people during that, I
Mm,
would not sleep well because I'd be taking all their problems home with me and completely beating myself up about whether I'd done a good enough job or not.
mm,
And it wasn't until, I'm trying to think of the year now, but kind of a long time after that, that I actually read a blog by someone saying, look, I'm going on maternity leave, but when I come back, this is the business
mm,
that is going to be ready for you. And
yeah.
it's all around coaching, and this is what coaching is.
Hmm.
And I read it and was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like this
Yeah.
really sounded like something I want to get hold of. So I phoned them up. They'd never met me before. They did a brilliant job of kind of chatting me through some stuff. And it suddenly dawned on me that there are all these people out there who do coaching who also take people through their Clifton
Yeah.
strengths. Because and I think you've had someone on talking about strengths before. Have you?
Yes, but from time to time, there's people that have do reference it. Definitely, yes. I'm not
Yeah,
sure specifically who you're referring to, but it has been referenced before.
yeah. So there's anyone can just go on the Gallup website and do the assessment, and you get loads
Mhm.
of really cool reports from
Yeah.
them. But what generally happens is you read it and you go, wow, this is amazing. Like, I should do something about this. Or there's loads of things I'll read or listen to
Mm.
because there's loads of cool podcasts and books and all this kind of stuff. And then generally, it just kind of gets put in a drawer somewhere and you're like, that was a great report.
Yes.
Not quite sure what I'm doing with
Yeah.
it. Um, and what I came to realize was there were processes and people and exciting things that you can actually go through to really, really figure out what that means to you and what you want to do about it. So that's when I decided to, yeah, get more training, get more involved.
Yeah. And what was it about? Because you say you spent a fair bit of time, because of having ME, didn't get out, but then well, you weren't able to get out, I should say. And then you've discovered the CliftonStrengths assessment. You've done that. You've identified where you're at. What was it that drove you to actually wanting to help other people? What was that? What was that drive? What was that trigger that you go, oh, okay, I'm actually going to use this to help people, as opposed to there's so many other things that you could have done, but you've always worked, from what I can tell, in coaching and helping other people. What was that driver that you want to help other people?
So I think I, throughout all of that, I was always trying to figure out what am I uniquely built to do, or what kind of is the purpose of me being around,
Hmm.
and is there like I don't think I ever truly believed like there's one option that's like the option and I might
Mm.
miss it and it'll be awful.
Yeah.
But I probably knew there were like better options for me if
Yeah.
I chose to look into it.
Hmm.
And I always knew that was going to be people orientated. So I always felt like I got a lot of joy about when I was finding out about other people and what
Mm.
made them happy.
Yes.
And after uni, that kind of I had to get a job and I knew I wanted to work with people. So I actually ended up supporting adults with learning disabilities who wanted to get into work,
Okay.
and then ended up working in some schools, quite kind of care orientated, which were amazing, but not good for my energy levels or for my mental health because
Right.
they weren't places that were built to look after the staff,
Right.
basically.
Okay.
Or what was interesting, and I didn't know at the time because I hadn't kind of dug deeper into my CliftonStrengths, was I think those scenarios just ended up kind of grinding me down because they were doing things that I find draining, but also were infuriating because I was spotting ways that we could make that better, but it wasn't in my remit to make it better. I wasn't in any of the leadership positions or in the kind of brainstorming or decision making.
So what were some of those challenges that you were identifying?
I think so. Early on, when I was working with adults with learning disabilities,
Mm.
we provided a brilliant service for them, but it
Mm.
was actually the rest of the world that were the issue.
Oh, okay.
That I would go along to interviews and training, and I basically learned how to do so many different jobs during that time because I would be kind of a buddy and an advocate to that
Yeah.
person or whatever they needed me to be, basically, until they could do it independently.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that I would talk to who were saying, well, but they can only do 8 hours work. And I was like, well, have you asked them? And
Mm.
why can't they do more? And just
Mm.
loads of, that's kind of quite a very basic and not judgmental,
Yeah.
in some ways, question that I got. There were a lot more that were quite shocking,
Yeah.
but there was always some kind of limiting factor put on those people that was nothing to do with actually what their capabilities were. So
Right.
I think I kind of got to the point where I was just like, gosh, this needs massive advocacy, and
Mm.
everyone we're coming across seems to need some kind of higher awareness of themselves as well as the people around them because
So
they're really not seeing things how they really are.
if I understand correctly, the people had the ability to do more, more work, for example, more hours, if you're using that example. They wanted to do more hours, but the structure of what they were in prevented them from doing that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, yeah. So part of that was the benefit system, is that they were trying to get off benefits and it was capped. Like it was all really messed up. So like if you're trying to get into work, you
Hmm.
kind of have to go from zero to everything
Yeah,
to be able to earn
enough
kind
to
of
live.
even close to what you were getting on your benefits.
Yeah,
And that's not reasonable to ask someone to do out of nowhere when they're on a journey of, I'm getting to know what work is and I'm learning what's all right for me to do. So that there was kind of a systems
mm.
issue.
Yeah,
But then, yeah, all the people hiring, like the hiring processes were not inclusive, or they're not, even if you say to them, well, this person can read certain things, but is not going to be able to just sit there and read a sheet, but they understand everything you're saying to them. And then they
yes.
sit down in front of a training video and it would be spoken to you, and every now and then the summary would just flash up on the screen, words really
Yeah,
fast. I was like,
okay.
guys, like what? I was like, I couldn't even read those words, and like,
Yes.
what the heck? So yeah, I did end up feeling like, gosh, I could just wander into all these places and just watch what was happening and
Yeah.
point something like, maybe I should have carved a role as a consultant.
To
Like,
provide more
just show me
effective
what you're doing,
training.
and can I just ask a few questions?
Yeah.
So that
And was
yeah,
it?
so that was interesting. And then I went on to work with children for a bit, which I loved, but it
Yeah.
was just, I think that was probably talking to my strengths and we call them non-patterns, the things that are your bottom kind
Mm.
of your strengths report, things that
Yeah.
other people would probably call your weaknesses.
Hmm.
Um, in that I really prioritize things being individualized and joyful,
Yes.
and um, yeah, being included in a process and decisions being made that are actually sensible rather than just because it's always been done that way. And I think I was probably in a lot of situations where I was just like, this is an insane choice
Mm.
and pathway to be put on, but I can't do anything about it. Yeah. So that kind of, I did actually get signed off sick from that particular place and decided I couldn't go back. And I think it was after that I was like, right, maybe being self-employed is the way forward. And if I'm
Mm.
doing that, then I need to really know even more about myself so that I can, when I'm having the day where I'm questioning everything in the world and why am I doing this, I can give myself my own pep talk of like, no, look, these are your strengths. This
Yes.
is why you
And is that what helped you? Like, for going back to the ME, you had that. Did that get resolved, or do you still have ME, and it's just a matter of dealing with it in a different way? Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so no, it didn't get resolved on its own. I had
No.
no medical kind of input or advice or anything because they were just like, you're a kid, kids don't get ME,
Yeah.
and just would give me blood tests for everything in the world every few months.
Hmm.
And my mum would be like going around everywhere just looking for answers, being like, maybe there's a nutrition answer, maybe there's a this answer, like let's just, yeah, she must have just been exhausted trying to kind of solve the problem without anyone else's help.
Yeah.
Um, but it was actually a spiritual element to it all in the end. So I was brought up going to church,
Yeah.
and so we'd actually been praying about it
Mm.
throughout. And yeah, just one day asked, well, someone else was praying for me actually, asked God to make me better. And I
Yeah.
literally, in the moment, couldn't prove it to anyone physically, obviously,
Yeah.
but just knew that it had gone. And it was like the most bizarre, calm, gentle thing that I just kind of knew.
Yeah.
Which was also a bit overwhelming at the time. I think I just kind of sat on the floor and cried for a little bit. And then basically became like a bouncy, energetic person that just ran everywhere for like the next week. So I was like, I can run now.
So go through that moment where you had that. Did you say someone prayed for you, and then you've said, if it sounds like you felt something inside had changed. Is that right? Or do you want to describe what that was? How did you
It was,
know that it had gone?
yeah. So it'd been like, it's not like I hadn't asked God to do something about it before
Mm,
that, because I believed that He could.
yeah.
Um, and nothing had really happened or changed that I knew of.
Mm,
But there was, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, just kind of an inner knowing that
yeah.
something
Uh,
had changed. And it's not like my body felt any different, or I could say to anyone I had these symptoms and now I don't, because actually that day I was having a fairly good day. I'd been around a lot of people. I would think I was on a weekend away, so
mm,
I'd had the energy to go somewhere. Um, but yeah, it was just this really kind of bizarre knowing that it was gone and it was never coming back.
yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that, and I think people experience that differently. But it is that it's a knowing is probably the way that a lot of people connect to that. It's just something that's difficult to describe, but it's almost like you say, it's gone, and it never came back again from there. I would imagine, and so you've been running ever
No.
since.
Yeah. Well, the hilarious thing is I
Forrest
actually hate
Gump.
running. I did I did a 10K race to raise money for a charity recently, and my whole marketing campaign to sponsor me was, I really hate running, please help me. So
So
yeah.
you could run, but you don't like running. I love that. So the you so that campaign to that's exciting that you had this campaign to raise money, but the campaign was help me because I don't like running.
Yeah.
I love that. What a great marketing angle. That's beautiful. And then from there, from that moment where you had that knowing, is that where was that part of that decision to help others?
Yeah, I think I was like, gosh, right, I'd better make use of this time now then, because I can suddenly do stuff.
Yeah,
Um, which in a way is kind of quite overwhelming, because I'm like, well, what on earth do I do? There's a lot of things, and I get excited really easily, and I love a new thing. So
yeah.
that's actually been kind of the ongoing story since, is everyone else going, oh my gosh, what? How are you doing all these things? Why are you doing all these things? You need to stop. And I'm like, well, I also looked into the Enneagram, and I'm definitely like the enthusiast, and I can't just do one thing at a time. So we're just gonna all have to deal with that.
So big, but so basically, it sounds like all this, the 10 years or so that you had ME, has all been sort of compounded, and now all this energy has come out. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
I love
My
that.
friend said, I'm always the person to pick if you want to try a new crazy thing, because I'm just up for it. Yeah.
I love that. Because you also did a little bit of writing as well. If I look at your history, you got into a bit of writing. What was the driver for that?
Yeah, so that used to be the one thing that when you asked me as a kid, what would you like to do? I was like, I want to be an author.
Oh, really?
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not quite yet. I am writing books currently,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just loved it. And I couldn't really explain that either. That was just kind of an inner thing. And I
Yeah.
did enter kind of a few local creative writing or short story competitions along the way, but was always absolutely terrified of putting myself out there. And I was just like, oh gosh, no one's going to want to know, or it's going to be terrible, or all these things. Um, but it's always been something that I quite enjoy, even though it's not easy.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's just kind of been something that's going on in the background for a really long time, that's been quite private. And then I suddenly made a decision last year that I was like, right, I actually need to do something about this.
Yeah.
So yeah, currently got a Trello board with about 6 books, like with all the ideas on there. But yeah, I think the first one that will be published is actually, will hopefully kind of be a blueprint of what my coaching business looks like, and will actually kind of describe all this kind of stuff, because I think I've realized whenever I've talked to people about coaching in the past, I'm either trying to explain what coaching is and what it's not,
Mm.
because lots of people call themselves coaches, and it's often not what I would define a coach as. So I
Yeah.
always kind of find like I'm backtracking and checking what people's definition of that is. Or I get excited by describing the tools, so I'll start you know, going on and on about CliftonStrengths and how amazing it is, or different
Mm.
stuff. But what I've come to realize more recently is if I explain to people what excites me and who I turn up as and what
Mm.
problems I'm amazing at solving, or just why I'm different from everyone else that you might meet, as is every person that you might meet,
Yes.
that will hopefully give people a much better idea as to whether they actually want to work with me or not.
Mm.
So I'm hoping to kind of basically do a bit of this, is a bit of my backstory, a bit of how my strengths show up, a bit of all the stuff that I get really excited about, and here's how my coaching works because of that.
Love
So
that.
yeah.
And is the writing that you do mostly to do with the coaching, or do you write fiction, or do you do other writing, or is it just mainly focused on your
Um,
coaching?
yeah, I've written a few articles that have gone out to various different kind of coaching um, organisations, and I blog quite regularly for my coaching business as well.
Mm.
Fiction, I think I need to get my confidence up a bit more before I brave that. I would love to.
Yeah.
And I read so much because I enjoy it like
Yeah.
so much. I think I'm on my 6th book this year already.
All right. Well, again, for those who, because
But,
this will go to air a little bit later, so we're still in the middle of January. So when we're recording this, that's amazing.
well, yeah, I didn't know what goal to set myself, and someone else said, "Oh, I read 22 last year." I was like, "Okay, great," and I wrote down 22, and then I was like, "Hang on, I'm on 6 in like week 4 of the." Like completely undersold myself there. So yeah.
Was that a way to feel good about yourself? Is set low goals and then you achieve it and get that dopamine rush? Is that
Yeah, I don't
uh,
know.
with so with your the Clifton strengths? So coming back to that, you've found that as a passion. Now I've looked at the Clifton strengths, and it's quite complex, and there's a lot of detail there. Do you want to talk us through the beginning of that? What is Clifton strengths? Give us a summary about that, and then talk us through the detail of the process you go through, because there's a number of different character types that fall within that, if I understand it correctly. I haven't studied, so if I get it wrong, apologize. But can you talk us through that and explain, overall summary, and then a bit more, we'll get into some more detail about how it works?
Yeah. So it is an assessment of potential talent, and it's hosted on the Gallup website. Who really, if you haven't heard of Gallup before, go look it up because they're a
Mm.
really amazing
Yeah.
organisation who've got so many amazing stats on what makes brilliant workplaces, how to. There's a lot about what employees think about workplaces, but also the current thing is like it's all about the manager. So let's just get managers being brilliant at what they do, and that's going to impact everything else. But you go by a code on the Gallup website, and then it's a 40-ish minutes,
Mm.
kind of high speed answering questions, so
Yeah.
that you can't trick it or be like, oh, actually, I really hope it's going to tell me that I'm this type of person, so maybe I'll put that, or maybe I'll put this. Like, there's no time for that.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, you come out at the end with a list of 34 talents, all of which are in the general population, but in
Mm.
the order that they show up more innately to you.
Mm.
And the stats are currently showing, with the current population of the world and the people that have done CliftonStrengths, that there's a 1 in a 33 million chance that someone has the same top 5 in the same order as you, which
Wow.
is
That's
just
amazing.
bonkers.
Yeah.
So and actually there can't be anyone alive that has the same order of those full 34 as you. It's just statistically not possible. So it's, yeah, that surprised me, that angle of it, that actually
Mm.
I thought I was doing this standardized, clever thing that's going to tell me something, and actually it's mainly telling me how unique I am and how
Mm.
different I am to everyone else, even though there's only 34 variables.
Right. Yeah.
Because actually, obviously, it doesn't work like that. They're all interacting with each other in all different ways, and it's just, yeah, it's really exciting. So yeah, you get this list of what order the 34 are for you, and then you get individualized reports. So it's not just, so like my top is strategic,
Mm.
They wouldn't just send me a standard strategic kind of blurb. They look at what else I've got on the list and how I've answered the questions, and the
Mm.
explanation of it is specific to me,
Right.
which is really cool. And then the talents also show up in 4 different domains. So some of them are to do with thinking, so it's very internal, things that are going on in your
Yeah.
mind. Some of them are to do with relating, so it's all about people. Then there's executing, so it's about
Mm.
making things happen, and influencing, so it's getting yourself or a team heard.
Right.
So then there's all that at play as well, and it just, yeah, you can get very geeky about it. Like, I get really excited about it.
It's
There's
okay.
loads of charts,
We can
loads
be
of stats,
geeky
loads
here.
of
There's no
charts.
problem at all. I'm quite happy being geeky and nerdy. I think I'm a king of nerds, so I like all this stuff.
Yeah, so there's loads of things you could look up, as like how rare it is that someone might have these 2 talents
Yes.
high or those 2 talents low,
Yeah.
and how many of the general population have certain talents, or whether gender has a bearing on that, or age, or yeah, location. It's
Uh,
just fascinating.
Is there some talents that appear that people have more common than others? Like if they were for, yeah, so when someone does a test, is there talents that appear more often in the top 5 than there are other talents?
I don't know about in the top 5, but yeah, there are some charts that show currently, of all the people that have done it so far, which talents are showing up more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember off the top of my head what those are.
Yeah. No, that's
But I'm yet to meet someone. Have they all had different top? Like, even their number 1, I think, have been different every time I've taken someone through it. Like, it's even though it's me telling you these stats, like, I'm still surprised by it every time.
right.
Like, every time someone sends me their reports that we can go through the coaching process, I
Mm.
genuinely am like, oh, it's different again. Like, even
Wow.
though it will
Yeah.
be.
So it's always exciting. It's kind of like an exciting drama. You're not sure what you're going to get.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
but how does someone, for example, because part of the work that you do is you're aligning people to their strengths and gifts, which my understanding is from what you're saying that a person will do the Clifton Strengths test, so that will tell them what their list is in order of the 34 different talents.
Mm.
And with a focus on the top 5, is that where you should be focusing your work, is on those top 5, and you should look at it,
So,
or how does someone approach that when they get that?
yeah. So you can choose to just only find out your top 5 when you
Yeah.
take the assessment, and it's a lower cost to do that.
Mm.
My belief is you just get so much more out of it seeing the
Mm.
full 34 and in
Mm.
that order, because the process that I take people on is actually 5 hours, not in one go because your brain just stops taking the information, but 5 hours spread out, going through
Mm.
every single one of the talents and figuring out which of those are completely innate to me, and I'm waking up and my brain's doing it and I don't even realize, and I don't even realize that other people don't do that.
Mm.
They are going to be your signature strengths, and they are the ones that you're going to get exponential growth and joy when you're focusing on those.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be a
Okay.
chunk in the middle of the list,
Mm.
which you can do and everyone else might think you're amazing at, but actually you could wake up one morning and choose not to do it.
Yes.
So it's kind of more of a honed skill,
Mm.
but it's not completely innate to you. And then
Yeah.
there's going to be a section at the bottom which everyone else would describe as your weaknesses. And
Right.
actually, that's quite a helpful process to do, because if you can, instead of seeing those other things, you're like, oh, but I wish I had those, and I've spent ages trying to work on them because everyone tells you to work on your weaknesses, and like one day if I work hard enough I'll get better at those and it'll be all right and I'll be able to tell everyone it's not my weakness anymore. But actually, there's so much research that's been going on like since the 70s to say that that's a load of rubbish. Like, you should just observe what your weaknesses are, be aware of them, and then figure out what to do despite them. Because
Mm.
actually it's very draining to work on those things. There's a reason that they are a non-pattern for you. And you will see a little bit of growth, but it's nothing compared to the growth that you'll see in your top strengths. So hopefully the process of going through all of that is actually quite releasing and kind of freeing of, right, there's that annoying bit at the bottom that might have had to explain to people in interviews over and over again of like, I'm really sorry, my brain doesn't do that, or someone always has to explain it a million times. And actually you can just own it and be like, yeah, actually I don't work like that. So either I need to find people who are brilliant at those things and partner with them, or come up with strategies around my top strengths that totally just work for me when my weaknesses are showing up anyway.
Is that part of that awakening? Because I mean, I've been aware of that as well, and certainly something that I do in my life is not, something that I don't like doing, or don't want to do, and maybe it's because it's low on CliftonStrengths, is to delegate it and just, or to not do it at all. And because as you say, if you love something, you're going to get much more, benefit from doing it than if you don't love it, and it's going to be a real struggle to improve. How does someone go about, as you say, I mean, it is common way of thinking to focus on and improve your weaknesses, whereas in life you actually don't have to. You can just delegate it or ignore it, or there are multiple ways of doing it, and focus on your strengths. And I know a lot of people that are, well, certainly in business, that are really successful. They might be really poor organizers, for example, but they have an EA to do that, and that organizes them for them. They don't even have to worry about it. They get told, oh, you've got a meeting here, or you've got this appointment coming up, and go and do that. And they have nothing to do with their scheduling because they're not good at it. Is that difficult for people to realize that is a way of operating when we're taught to focus on our weaknesses? Is that something that you find people have challenged accepting and making part of their life?
Yeah, I think people kind of realize that it shouldn't be a thing, but it's still happening.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't realize it's happening. And I think when we fully embrace it, I think there's an interesting thing that happens, is that we suddenly have to distinguish between what is something that I need to do because it's hard, and actually it's going to make me a better person because I've done a hard thing and I've overcome it. And when is it looking like that, and it's a brilliant self-development discipline type thing, and when is it something that I know I'm never going to be good at that, it's never going to benefit anyone, me focusing on that, and I might as well just say that out loud and find a way of collaborating with someone or moving around that and coming up with a different way of it happening. It's coming back to the kind of inner knowing of stuff, I think, isn't it? So you kind of have to realize it for yourself, and then it becomes a bit of a, am I in a privileged position where that is a thing that can happen? Can we reorganize people's tasks? Do other people understand the language of strengths? Because like some organizations have taken on strengths as a culture, so actually everyone's done the assessment, you're talking in those terms every day and celebrating the people around you, and actually people start thinking outside of the box, and they go, well, the job description for that role has already always said this, but we've currently got someone in that role who needs to do it a bit differently, and actually if we could take these two tasks off of them and put them over there, they're going to absolutely fly, and this person over there who shouldn't normally be doing those things might be over the moon about getting to do these two tasks because they'll really get a kick out of it. So it's but what is a shame sometimes, I think, when just an individual comes and does strengths, it's still completely worthwhile and amazing, but you suddenly start seeing things in a different light, and you might not be in the position where you can enlighten everyone else or have the kind of authority to be like, right, can we switch something up then, guys, or change this? And then it can be a little bit frustrating unless everyone around you is kind of getting on board. But then
go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes it kind of, people bring it into a company in order to help people thrive, and obviously that is going to happen, but you will find that it kind of of create some movement in your staffing, because it is going to make some people realise, oh gosh, I've sat in this seat for this many years doing things that are just really hard. That's why I've never loved this job. And it's not because I'm trying to be lazy or annoy people, or, I've just kind of given up. It's actually because my brain and my, like, how I'm wired just isn't great at doing this. So actually, I'm going to look elsewhere. So it's kind of being able to hold that space without everyone getting wobbly in that moment, because actually the end game is get everyone in, like, using their unique talents and doing stuff that really makes them joyful and benefits the company as well.
Wow. Because I've always wondered about that from that perspective, because we're always taught, work smarter, not harder. But so often you see, people in organizations working really, really hard and in where areas where it could be easier. And is that the case here, where we're talking about finding, okay, this is your strength, this is what's going to be easy for you? Because that's another thing that I kind of believe, that life is actually pretty easy. It's got simple rules. If you follow those rules, it's not that difficult. And is that a case of what this is setting up for you? Just showing you, okay, these are a set of rules or guidelines for you. This is what you're good at. Focus on that, because you're going to really enjoy your life much more than if you try and focus in areas that aren't. And where, if you need to do something in an area that you're not strong at, find a way of getting that done in a way that probably is, not you doing it. Is that?
Yeah, or be creative, and maybe, so I have a list of what my top strengths are in front of me most of the time. And the process of coaching that I go through with people as well, you find out kind of what you need and what you bring to a situation. And if you're finding yourself in too many situations where the things that you need are not being met, you can kind of start feeling very frustrated and like, I'm not sure I should stick around. Whereas because I work on my own, if I'm kind of just going round and round in circles with something or finding it really annoying, I'll often look at my list and go, right, which one of my top ones can I now lean on and leverage to sort this out? And often one of my strengths is positivity. So often that is the Kickstarter of me going, it's all right. There's everything bad can be turned around. There's always going to be a good outcome somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Let's just give this, let's get a different angle on this. Or another one that I have is called a ranger, and so actually I like, as described as kind of spinning lots of plates, so that I do like having a lot of stuff going on.
Yes.
And sometimes if I'm feeling a bit stressed, doing that with physical things really helps me. So if everyone else is out the house, I might go and completely rearrange the furniture in a room, or have a kind of massive sort out of stuff that no one else was expecting, which freaks them out, but it really grounds me, because I'm like, oh, that thing that I just kind of, that's really good now. And then I can kind of come back and face whatever else it was that I needed to do.
So don't leave you alone in the office for a week, because everyone will be sitting in different places. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'll be like, guys, I just realised you're there and you're there. Yeah, but even just being able to say that to people, or I think in our education system and in interviews and things that I've had experience of, there's very much the expectation that you're going to be successful if you really know what you think, you can remember things really well, and you can be presentational and answer things on the spot. That's never been natural to me. I would much rather tell you all the answers to questions tomorrow, or further away than that. And that therefore has kind of been built into me, that's a downside of who I am. Whereas strengths has shown me that actually it's fine. I can rock up anywhere or in any meeting and say without apology, I can't answer that right now. I'm a reflective person. I solve problems overnight, or I will have a much better answer if you come back to me in 2 hours' time. And it kind of, it's not just learning stuff about yourself, but you start spotting it in other people as well. So having meetings where you can have given someone the agenda the day before because you know that they need that thinking time, or brought someone in who wouldn't normally be in because they are an ideas person and they're going to totally kickstart something,
Yeah.
even if they're not needed for the whole process. That then just gets kind of really fun and interesting, I think.
Is that a different strength, or maybe that's not the right word, but a different challenge? So you do the test, and as you said, you recognize you're more reflective, but then having the confidence to tell somebody in a situation, because you might recognize it and then go, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that because of whatever. Is that a different process as well that you take people through?
Yeah, maybe. So there is a strength called self-assurance, and
Yes.
you know when you meet those people, because they've never doubted themselves a second in their lives. Like it's the
Yeah.
kid on the playground that just looks like they're in the place and they're like 5.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't have that. So I'm constantly questioning myself. But yeah, I wonder whether that is something that I've just kind of grown into and just become more confident of gradually because I've just seen the joy of finding out how different everyone is. That's
Mm.
been amazing as well. So like when I went into a company and first described this to them, one of their questions, which I wasn't expecting actually, was, well, aren't we all going to feel really vulnerable and kind of put on display for people? And
Mm.
what if people start saying to me, using this in a way that actually makes me feel like I'm not doing my job well, or that I shouldn't be here, or it was quite an
Isn't it
interesting take on
interesting
it
how
of like,
fear creeps in though?
yeah, of like this might be something that's used against me. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like let's not go there.
Yeah.
Whereas the whole point is to find out how we can celebrate each other and
Mm.
use all the amazing stuff that everyone has got. Um, so I think just me being able to watch that happen in so many other people has then given me the confidence as well to be like, well, these are my strengths, and I don't do the others, and I'm fine with that. Um, but I've had some really helpful people along the way as well, actually, who haven't used strengths language but have noticed very specific things in me, and when they've
Mm.
described me, I've then kind of been able to piece things together later and go, okay, that person always goes on about how I love a puzzle and I love a problem. Just give her a puzzle and she'll go
Yeah.
off over there and
Yeah.
she'll figure it out and she'll come back to us with an answer that we weren't expecting at all, but it'll fix it. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's what I do. Or like, if you want to organise a big event, I can do that, absolutely no problem. But I would never want to be an event organiser as a job. But
Mm.
give me a limited time thing of here's the deadline, here's what's going on. I actually go into kind of strategic arranger mode and go, physically and schedule wise, this is how it will work best for every person that's going to walk in that door. And these are all the things that we need to do. Let's just get it done. But then sorry, you have to stop. I will talk about this for hours. You'll have to stop me at some point. But I also have another one called activator, which means as soon as there's a decision, I want to just do it like
Yeah.
yesterday.
Okay.
And
I can see that in
other
you. It's like
people,
you're going, I'm ready to go. Just let me loose.
yeah. And other people have deliberative, and that superpower is being able to slow everything down and really take time to make sure that you're doing the best job of it.
Mm.
But they often get kind of pigeonholed as, oh, they're really slow at doing everything. They're always asking more questions. They can't make their own decisions. They like
Mm.
that often becomes kind of a weird cultural thing, I think. Whereas actually, I need those people around. Otherwise, someone says something and I'm like, I'm gone. I've planned 3 years ahead. I've put a load of stuff in motion, and I'm like, I haven't stopped to think about whether it was actually right to do it right
Yeah.
now. I was just like, great, we're off.
Yes.
Um, so, yeah,
It sounds like from that perspective, what it enables you to do, or what enables people to do, is because you said it's regardless of gender, regardless of age, it's identifying what you're strong at, so you can perform to your maximum potential. Is that summing it up, do you think?
yes.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, I think someone started doing research on this, and I meant to look it up and I haven't yet, is that if you recruited
Mm.
purely on these talents, the theory is you would have a much more diverse, in all senses of the word, and inclusive workplace because you're hiring on talent and nothing else. Like, obviously those people need to share your culture, like your workplace culture, not necessarily where you've kind of grown up culture,
Yeah.
or the values and the purpose of the organization. That's always going to have some kind of, importance to people. But if you know what you actually need to get your company performing well, and you just go after talent rather than whatever the CV says and how long they can stick around for and what money they're after, then it becomes quite an interesting exercise.
So how does a company go through that exercise does a company itself have to do a test and say, okay, or do they say we have a certain skill set that we need, or certain, when you say strengths, we've got a certain objective that needs to be fulfilled that we're missing? How does a company identify what it is that they need? Is it a case of filling a gap that somehow they identify? And can we talk through that first, and then how we go about finding that right person?
So it depends on the size of the organisation a bit and how long they've been operating for, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But so someone that I came across last year, they wanted me to do strengths coaching after 7 of the management team had done the assessment. And at that point, we were going to have a half-day workshop with us all discussing, right, this is what we've all learnt about ourselves and each other. What do we want to do about this? And is there anything at management level we want to change and decide because of all this amazing new information? And at that point, they were then going to roll it out to the rest of the employees. So another 40 people would have taken the assessment, and then it can work 2 ways. Either the managers can be given all the data and be coached through, or kind of have some kind of team day on, this is what talent looks like in our company. What are we going to implement? What are we going to do about it? Or you have a full staff kind of, let's all just talk about this and see where we go. So that's if someone was embracing it immediately as kind of a new thing. And then those people, I would presume, would then use it almost during the recruitment process of, you're coming to an interview, can you do this assessment? If someone already understands strengths, on the other hand, or you've got something embedded that's kind of similar, or you realize it's going to be more ingrained longer term, and you can already say, I need someone who does this, or who doesn't do this, because actually we've got far too many people who are already doing that. Then this is something that I'm looking more into actually this year. Is it would be interesting to me to know how recruitment agencies could use it if they've got a sales position they need to fill, and they keep getting CVs from people that basically say the same thing because everyone's gone on a CV writing course or has got a success coach telling them what to write. Then how on earth do you put that right candidate forward so that it's the right fit for them, but also you can prove that you're actually a good recruiter? And I think that actually doing that by talent and by values and kind of more personality based stuff is probably the way forward, because actually you can say, well, this person can do all the stuff, they've got all the accreditations or whatever you want them to have, but their brain does it like this, and they want an opportunity to kind of thrive in this kind of setting. It much more sets up, I kind of like to think of it as kind of the atmosphere that you bring along with you when you turn up. So I was saying to someone the other day, I'm quite happy if I went back into employment, I would quite happily do any job given to me, but I think I would quite quickly get wound up or wind everyone else up if I wasn't able to see the progression or to see how I might be able to help better things, because I can't switch that bit of my brain off. Like, even if I was, like, if I went and just had some shifts at a local restaurant and the remit was just go and serve the tables, I would literally within 2 minutes have been walking in and be like, well, why are the tables laid out like this, and why are the menus like that, and how is this process happening, and what is, like, I just want to know what's going on
Yes.
and how we can make it better.
Yeah.
But that would never be asked of me. And so,
Yeah.
so eventually we'd have to part ways, because I would just not be, I would not be thriving
Mm.
in that situation, and I'd probably be really winding them up by that point with all my questions.
Sounds like it. I mean, from that perspective, and I'd certainly agreeing, hiring on character and talent creates a long-lasting relationship, because and it would be a cost saver. I mean, employee turnover and hiring people is extremely costly to organizations.
Yeah, it's massive.
And also in today's environment as well, we have such a skills shortage. It's more and more difficult to find people, and then so if we're hiring people based on the wrong criteria, like you said, you can't hire someone based on their CV. I mean, just it's you have no idea of knowing if that's the real person that you're getting. Especially now with all the CV coaching, that kind of thing. So is this another way forward of getting past that? One is, is hiring people that fit better with what you need them to do, and who are going to be long-lasting employees because they actually enjoy doing what you're asking them to do.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive for retention and engagement of employees, because I think it's also often confused whether you're looking for a skill set or a talent, because skills can be taught.
Yes.
And talents can't. It can look like someone's getting better at something, but they will still always be doing a default version of something. And I was having an interesting discussion with someone in the army actually recently about this, and I said, I wonder how many soldiers surprise you with certain reactions in certain circumstances, despite having all the same training as everyone else in their regiment. Because actually there's going to be things that you're not going to have predicted because of what their innate talents are. Some people are literally just going to switch into action and be in the right situation at the right time and absolutely smash it. And other people are going to take their time figuring out what the heck's going on. So, yeah, it is much more can you see the gap in talent rather than, right, we've got loads of people who can project what all our budgets need to be, and they can write all the reports amazingly, and we can get every bid we ever wanted, but actually we haven't got the people seeing it through and actually doing everything that we asked for the money for. And yeah, to know whether someone's going to turn up and love the challenge of something new, or be absolutely horrified that you've handed them something that's not completely given them the blueprint.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. To know when people want a bigger challenge and enjoy figuring it out, and the other people who just, yeah, you tell me what to do, I'll go and do it, and don't check up on me because I've said I'm going to do it, so I will, but I need to know the detail. And
yeah, can you explain a little bit more about the difference between skills and talents? Because you mentioned that before. Skills can be taught. We know that. Talents, as you said, they can't be taught. Is that more connected to character? And just can you explain that difference between skills and talent?
So I'm trying to think what I would tell you my skills are now. But I'm quite a fast speed typer, although actually I haven't done a test recently. And I can apply for admin roles and do it with my eyes closed. So someone can ask me to sort out a database or write a report on something, and that is a skill, that is an administrative skill that I have been taught. However, I'm going to cross into like loads of kind of related but tangent type things now, is we were talking about gifts right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Haven't really brought up, but other people would describe me as having a gift of administration because of the way that I see the whole picture of how
Yeah.
something needs to happen. And I think it's then that it tips over into kind of, okay, my strategic comes into play. I'm quite futuristic. That's another one of the talents.
Mm.
I can see a big picture and the details at the same time, and that's I'm told quite rare. I don't know, because I just do
Yeah.
it. I could learn lots of other skills around that and go on lots of courses that mean that I can explain that to other people or train them up to do specific tasks
Yeah.
in that. But it's the stuff where my brain just goes, yeah, that I'm not even following or aware of, that my brain
Yeah.
has taken me off over here, and I've just kind of planned something out and sorted it out, and I didn't even know
Yeah.
that anyone would do that any differently. That's the thing that can't be taught.
Yeah. So you're just naturally looking for ways of improving how it goes, and that's one of those. That's your talent is constantly
So I
looking.
think I always look for patterns and pathways. So a different job that I had as paid
Mm.
employment, I was
Mm.
a database administrator, and I was meant to be looking at this chunk over here
Yeah.
and sorting out keep people's contact details up to date, put the right tag on so that people can email the right groups, and sort out some rota reminders or something,
Yeah.
The thing is that I know this whole beast is there and how
Yeah.
it all functions. And so people will come and ask, like anyone could have been told, sign in, do this, that's where that data is stored, this is how this
Mm.
funnels into that part of the database, and you can only tag a person in this way, in this order. That's kind of the skill
Yeah.
of it. Whereas I had people coming to me and saying, we need to put this process in place, so can you just kind of match that up so that that's also automated
Yeah.
through that email sequence? Or if we run this event over here, can those people be told, and can it function in all these ways? Because it's more than a database, really. It was kind of a
Mm-hmm.
running a whole building and multiple events kind of thing. And I could basically see the whole system and how each bit impacts all the other bits,
Yeah.
and basically became the no person
Yes.
because I was going, you've started at step 10 and we need to go back to like -1 to figure
Yeah.
out what you actually want and why and how it impacts everyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, which is not how everyone else's mind was working when they were looking at it. They were just like, I just signed in and checked someone's address and then sent an email. That was, yeah.
Right. So you can be good at a skill, but not be a talent for you. And even if you're good at it, because it's not a talent or it's out in one of your lower talents, it's not something that you'll continue to enjoy doing. Even though you're really good at it, you might not, enjoy it and just not feel satisfied with what you're doing.
I think, yeah, so if we're talking about the kind of the middle section of your list of talents,
Yeah.
all of the talents, if they're kind of showing up high for you, you can grow in. So that's the other thing. And you can grow it into something that you can do with near perfect performance because you've taken that time to look at what it really means and look at how you need to approach it and keep refining it. The ones in the middle, so for me, I think I can still enjoy doing them. It's just I don't automatically think about it. So if someone asks me to, I can go and be quite analytical about something, or I can go and think something through, but that wouldn't be my first thought.
Yeah.
And the kind of deciding thing really on whether it's a top signature talent or whether it's one in the middle that you kind of choose to engage with or not is, if it's in your top, there's 5 E's, and I'm going to have to try and remember them now. It's going to be easy, effective, enjoyable, energizing, and it happens in all environments in your life.
Well done. You pass.
And it's quite late in the evening as well for I'm praying to do that. Yes, so the others, you can still enjoy them and you can still look amazing to other people, but it's not going to be always. And sometimes it might be a bit tricky. or
Training.
it just takes more work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So to do that, from your perspective, how do you, I mean, if we go into what you're actually doing now, how do you help? Do you help organizations? Do you help companies? Describe the services and that you provide, because from what I can see on your website, you do both. Describe how people engage you in the services that you provide them.
Yeah. So, because I get excited about everything, I kind of offer all the options. We're all
Fantastic.
different. So yeah, some of it we've described already. As an individual, you can go and buy a code on the Gallup website, do the assessment, and then come to me. And I actually do 6 hours initially, although it can be ongoing for as long as people want. And what that looks like is 5 hours that you schedule when you want, of going through what are these talents and what does it mean to me. Because everyone describes them differently as well. That's what is super enjoyable for me. Everyone's got a different story and a different way of going, oh, is how that shows up, and like everyone thinks that I'm really weird. But I always want to bolt on at least that extra hour so that you can then go, well, what now? Like, so what am I going to do with this? So we get to kind of thrash out whether there's anything you want to change, or what you want to implement, or what you need to put in place to just remember this stuff that you've learned. And some people choose to keep that as an ongoing coaching relationship. Other people, that's enough for them and they're off on their own journey with it. I then offer it to whole companies, and it starts the same. So every individual does their 6 hours, and then you get to choose whether it's something that the management run with kind of facilitation and coaching, or whether it becomes a whole staff team kind of transformation day. The other thing that's quite interesting that is yet to show up online, but I'm about to start talking about it, is I have completely kept a way of ever describing myself as a highly strategic consultant, problem-solving person, because I found that I love being a coach, and I will always want to coach people. If they get a whiff of the fact that I can be a fixer, they just want me to fix stuff, and I don't want to do any of the work. And so if I then try and switch us back into coaching mode, and they were like, oh, but I thought you were going to sort that out. Like, why are you asking me to do something? So I basically put that over there and have just been facing as a coach, which is amazing, and I love it. But along the way, obviously my little strategic thing going on all the time, or me just finding all these things that I'd love to solve everywhere, that needs somewhere else to go. So actually I am going to be starting to offer kind of like the whole service if a company wanted it. So they could say, right, we know we're going through a period of change, or we've got this massive problem we don't know how to solve. We know we've got a load of the right people in the right place, but actually just need someone to come in and be kind of a thinking partner on the journey. And actually maybe you need coaching 1 week so you can figure out what the heck's going on and what you're going to do about it, but actually the next week you need someone facilitating a workshop and kind of getting that out there with the rest of the staff. Or you do kind of have a very specific fix that is needed that my brain might do in a way that actually no one else in the room is doing it. If there's an organisation that realises, right, we've got a big problem, or everyone's going through a wobble, or there's going to be a period of change, and actually we need someone who just thinks a bit differently or can be our thinking partner. Because I was on a sales call with someone last week, and they said, oh, I wonder whether you're actually a navigator, because you like being able to set goals and directions and steer things along the way, but you also love having joint responsibility and making sure that everyone else is kind of doing the work as well. And I thought that's actually a really great description, because I love stepping into a situation, seeing what's going on and helping to be part of the processing and the figuring it all out, but then being able to step back again and watch them all flourish in the things that they're amazing at, and kind of being called back in whenever they need that little bit of input or thinking space or whatever again. So yeah, I think if you choose to follow me online, I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about who I am and how I show up, rather than these are all the things that I can come and fix and all the tools I use, because then I wonder whether you might suddenly read something and go, oh, that is exactly what I need. It's just someone's brain that works differently.
Yes.
They might be showing up as a consultant or a coach or a facilitator or a trainer, and I want them to do those different things at different times, and we can deal with the hat changes that quickly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The other area you talk about as well is positive intelligence. We haven't touched on that a bit. Do you want to explain more about positive intelligence and how that connects to the work that you do?
Yeah. So I accidentally found this and was just so overjoyed, because a lot of the time when you're coaching someone, they have a big revelation of something. We talk about what they might want to put in place and whether they need to kind of be more accountable about something or think in this new way.
Mm.
And coaching can definitely help with that. It's
Mm-hmm.
an amazing tool. Sometimes people need to switch to counselling or switch to something else, but coaching can overcome all those things
Yeah.
if you want to do the work. However, human nature,
Yes.
it just makes it blimmin' hard, and you're always like tripping over something or wondering, being like, but I figured that out and I solved that and I thought I'd put everything in place, and here we
There's
are
always
again.
more learning.
And yeah, and it's infuriating. And so I found this positive intelligence program, and basically you start off by doing, again, it's called an assessment, but this one is like, I think it's like 2 minutes of asking some quite quick fire questions, and it shows you how you're self-sabotaging. So the things that you're doing that you don't realise are stopping you from overcoming all the obstacles that you thought, yeah. And the universal one is called the judge, because whether we realise it or not, everything that happens to us, we're judging either ourselves
Yeah.
or the person in front of us or the situation that has happened to us. And again, often quite subconsciously, we're making a decision in that moment, this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. And then kind of making decisions or reactions because of that. And the whole premise of this positive intelligence stuff is that if you can get to a point where you view every single thing that happens as a gift, then it transforms the way that you start thinking about things. It's because often, even something bad, and even something absolutely awful in the moment, has some kind of benefit or kind of ridiculous kind of 180 story that you'd never think, like no one would write because it's so ridiculous. Like down the road, something has happened that is actually ultimately good because of this thing that everyone decided was bad before. So yeah, but hang on, I'm trying to count them all up now. There's a certain number of saboteurs.
Yes.
I think 9. And so my top 2 are restless and avoider, which is very interesting when I look at that alongside my talents and my enthusiasm and my everything else, because actually I am always wanting to move on to a new thing.
Yeah.
And if something's a bit tricky or painful, I probably will try and avoid it. And actually, if I face up to those things, or I just notice those things, almost a bit like cognitive behavioural therapy and kind of mindfulness techniques of, right, I'm catching that thought and I'm choosing whether to hold it out here and go, right, we're really going to have a look at you, decide what to do with you, or you can just be like, I'm noticing you there and we're just going to let you carry on for a bit because it's not a day when I can deal with it. But to just have that knowledge around it and to start leaning on kind of curiosity and empathy instead, it absolutely transforms people. Like, it's actually insane. And it's been used with a load of top leaders who are successful in every, like on the outside, and the most successful people you've ever met.
Yes.
But internally, or the people working closest to them, they're just coming up against the same things and don't know why it's happening. So it's kind of, it's a process of figuring that out, basically. And there's an app that's been built around it. So you do quite an intensive kind of 6 weeks of learning
Hmm.
all about stuff. And 4 times a day you get a notification on your phone, and 3 of those times it's a 2 minutes, take time out, be present. There's kind of like a mindfulness kind of grounding
Yeah.
exercise on a topic that you've just learned.
Mm.
And then the fourth one is a kind of journaling of the day. Um, and it's all built around the idea as well that it's actually mental fitness. So just
Hmm.
as with physical fitness, you need to do something regularly to build a muscle or to see a difference.
Yeah.
And when you stop, you very quickly notice, oh, I'm not really not as fit as strong as I was like even last week, just because it's now been 5 days since I went to the gym. Is totally the same
Yes.
with um, with our mental muscles, they call them, I think, in the app.
Yeah.
So you can go to the PQ gym, which is your positive intelligence gym, and it gives you like a little graph on there on how well you're doing of kind of checking in, and yeah,
Is
it's
it a
really quite
case of
amazing.
building a habit? Because you mentioned about like being like fitness, where
Mm,
that repeated exercise, but unlike fitness, well, similar to fitness, you mentioned, but it as it seeps more into our unconscious mind, it becomes stronger and stronger until a point, or I believe a point where it becomes self-propelling. Is
mm,
is that where it is where you have to, it might be you've been brought up with a set of beliefs, or you've created a set of beliefs, and a belief is just a thought that you've repeated over and over again, and it's a matter of undoing that and just having enough time to allow that to then get to that stage where it is self-propelling, or is
mm.
is that part of that process?
Yeah, so it's basically has mapped out a way that you can genuinely rewire all those
Mm,
pathways. Where so the guy who wrote the program came from quite a traumatic background and then overcame kind of all of
mm,
that trauma and has become a psychologist.
yeah,
And so his main saboteur was, I'm always the victim
yeah,
and bad stuff always happens. That was literally, and he said his judge of everything and everyone in front of him was so harsh, and his self judge as well. Like he just
mm,
absolutely ripped himself to
mm,
shreds internally, and no one would ever known that he was doing that. But to be able to daily have those times when you're just starting to kind of drip feed the idea that I'm not always a victim and sometimes good things can happen. Because obviously it's not, you can't do it that fast. You can't jump from terrible things always happen to like everything's amazing and it's always going to
yeah,
be amazing. Like,
yes.
but to know that like something can change and
Mm,
something is about to change, and then kind of embed that through this repetitive thing, which actually doesn't feel repetitive because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it with
mm,
my main thing being restless. As soon as something gets monotonous and samey, I'm just like, oh, let's switch it up a bit, let's try something else. Whereas
yes.
genuinely, I'm like, ooh, what's the thing? What's it going to be about today? And like actually take a moment and yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like both CliftonStrengths and the positive intelligence is about creating self-awareness. So you're aware of where you're at, and then and once you're aware, then you can go, okay, this is what I can do with my life. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
And
It
how
just
did,
kind of, sorry, you go.
no, no, you,
I was going to say it kind of makes it a bit more practical than
yeah.
that as well, because you're actually making some kind of decisions and plans along the way because of what you realize you can now do or release yourself from.
Well, that was the part that I was going to get to. Yeah. So you were touching on that. Was how do we? So this, you've got self-awareness, and then you've got to, from that perspective, then take some action to implement that. Is that a case of, especially? I mean, is it difficult if you find that yourself in completely a different situation? You might be, realize that you've been doing exact opposite of what you should be doing, or your assessment shows that your strengths are. How do we do that in life? If certainly if people see us a certain way, we can be told, oh, you're different now, or something's changed. How does someone address that so to get so that they don't fall back into old habits?
Mm. Yeah, so I think one side of it is I'm not expecting everyone to almost be privileged or lucky enough to be in the position of, well, I found out all these things, I'm just going to quit my job and move house and find new friends and just have this whole new version of myself. It's going to be amazing, and everyone else can just fall in line. Like, that's not real life, is it?
No.
They're going to be sitting in a load of in-betweeny stuff for a very long time. But I think even just being able to have the language and kind of help other people to see what's been going on with you can then so actually hilariously falls back into what I find energizing and enjoyable, and part of my talents is it's kind of fuels me to see all this stuff happens in other people. But it's not like you can suddenly become an expert or a guru or whatever and just announce it to everyone. I found this amazing thing, so you better go and do it. Like, that's not how anyone ever learns about something. But if you're able to describe what's happening to you in a way that's not kind of dictating a new way of doing something, and is just kind of a bit more non-assuming than that, people start seeing stuff anyway, like even without you saying anything sometimes, don't they? If they're seeing you just acting more relaxed and more confident in what you're doing, it does have an impact on people around you. And then I think it can just be a bit of a gradual process of, like, it can, when you're having to make decisions about something, you suddenly find yourself going, oh, well, is planning my week like that going to make me feel really energized or not? And how much control do I have over that or not? And so what do I need to ask of people, or let them know, or just kind of suck up for a bit until I've figured out a new way of how it might happen? So
it's not a case where you discover, okay, these are my strengths, and or these are what my saboteurs are, and then you make a big announcement about it. You can just continue on with what you're doing and just doing things slightly differently, and allow people to absorb that as you're doing it.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm sorry to say that none of this is a quick fix or like an overnight transformation. And it's all a journey that you need to kind of decide, right, I'm going to go with it for the long run and see where it goes. Because, I'm not sure I found a quick fix yet. Everyone loves to think there is one, but
So it's just a case of, you can get into the mode of, I'm going to change the room around, and other people are slowly going to have to get used to that. Is that?
Yeah, I have had to stop doing that. It freaked them out too much.
I love it though. So what's the best way of people reaching you? Is it, how could they reach out to you? We'll put some details in the show notes, but do you want to just let people know how to best contact you?
Yeah, so kind of social media, online wise, I'm mostly on LinkedIn, actually. I absolutely love that community. Made so many friends on there, and just having random chats with people. So I'm always in my LinkedIn messages if you want to message me on there. Catherine Gray Coaching is the business page. There's a lot of Catherine Grays out there, but my profile picture looks like this. I've not done anything weird or fancy. And my website is catherinegraycoaching.com. I think on Instagram I show up as Catherine Gray Coaching as my title, but I'm at Purposeful Coaching because I couldn't get Catherine Gray Coaching, and also everything that I do, because of another one of my talents, is about there being a purpose in it. So that was my kind of version 1 of my business name, still hanging on in there.
Fantastic. I love that. Being very purposeful. Catherine, if you could describe or leave the audience with a couple of, or single key wisdom, if you could nut it down, what would be your key wisdoms that you would encourage the audience to take away?
That's a great question. Now, normally I would have to tell you that I have to come back tomorrow to think about this. But I was in a workshop with
some elevator music in between.
Yeah. I was in a workshop with a load of 15-year-olds asking big life questions earlier this week, and they literally fired every big question at me like high speed, and I had to think about it, and actually came up with a really good one for this. Is that I really think that if we choose to stay curious, there's only we're only going to reap the benefit, and everyone else around us is going to reap the benefit, because it means that we never get to a place where we go, oh, well, I know all about that already. So
Yeah.
I'm either an expert or I don't need to listen to you. Like, I think it just works on all angles, because even if you're having a one-to-one conversation with someone and they're really annoying you, if you choose in that moment to stay curious, it immediately changes your reaction to that person, and you can actually be willing to hear them, or even kind, even if they're really annoying. And it will improve your relationships with people and your outlook on life and your ability to learn stuff and better yourself, if you just try and trigger that little thought back there of, I wonder what would happen if I was curious.
I love that about being curious, especially what you mentioned in relation to with people, being curious about, rather than reacting and getting angry when someone might be angry at you, getting curious about what that is and what's upsetting them. That's gold. I love that. Catherine, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. There's so much useful information to share with people and to help people, help them find their gifts and their strengths and live by that. Wonderful having a show. Looking forward to chatting again in the future. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. Loved it.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes, for others and for you.